Good evening, and thank you for attending the fourth annual public information session on the city's modified sanitary sewer consent decree. We will keep a similar agenda to past years, and we will still have learning stations at the end of my presentation, albeit this year they will be digital ones. If you have attended these information sessions in the past, you have heard me explain the background before, but for the sake of new attendees, I will go over it again. I think it's important to start with some historical context. Over the past decades, dating back as far as the 1950s, the local jurisdictions were focused on the expansion of the water and wastewater utilities into the surrounding counties. This was a big effort to provide public utilities to the surrounding counties to accommodate growth in these areas. Unfortunately, the city did not invest as much into the maintenance of the original infrastructure within the city. As these pipes age, cracks can form and joints can become loose, allowing stormwater and groundwater to enter into the sanitary system. It is what we refer to as inflow and infiltration, or I&I. And the I&I can contribute to sanitary sewer overflows during wet weather, and those overflows constitute a violation of the Clean Water Act. Accordingly, the city entered into a consent decree with our regulators in 2002 to address these overflows. The consent decree had a number of important requirements. We had to evaluate our sewer sheds. The collection system includes about 1,400 miles of sanitary sewers in the city alone, and about 71% of the system was over 50 years old. Thus, it was important to understand the state of the system in order to properly remediate the problems. We also had to develop a hydraulic model to evaluate flows through our collection system, and then we set forth projects that the city would complete to reduce overflows, and these projects were set to be completed by 2016. Now, the city was not able to comply with that 2016 deadline, in part because we discovered a hydraulic restriction at our Back River wastewater treatment plant. I'll refer you to the slide which contains the area highlighted in pink. The large wastewater interceptor leading into the wastewater treatment plant was lower than the headworks of the plant, and thus the collection system needed to build up a hydraulic head to push influent into the plant. The pink area on the slide is the area where our collection system actually filled with sewage in order to create that pressure within the system. Because this area was always filled with sewage, it affected the capacity of the system and how it functioned. So once we understood the scope of this almost 10-mile hydraulic restriction, it forced the city to reevaluate its plan to remediate the sanitary sewer system. So we went back to the drawing board with EPA and MDE and modified our consent decree. So we're here today to give you some background on the modified consent decree, provide updates on the work we are doing to remediate the sanitary sewer system, really connect you to the people responsible for that work, and then answer any questions that you might have. Now, when we drafted the modified agreement, we didn't simply add a few projects onto what we agreed to do in 2002. We did add projects, specifically the Headworks project, that is designed to eliminate that hydraulic restriction, but that's not simply all we did. We developed a new strategy that implements adaptive management concepts as seen in our two-phased approach, which creates a specific performance goal for our system once the remediation is completed. We're not just completing a list of projects, we will complete existing projects plus the Headworks project. That should address 83% of the sanitary sewer overflow volume. But we're then going to evaluate the effects that those projects have had on our system. Then we're going to design and complete any further projects that are needed to establish a certain level of protection. We want a 5-year level of protection citywide and a 10-year level of protection for sensitive areas. We also extended the time frame for compliance, and we did this for two reasons. First, we're doing more work, and I think we're making sure that we're doing things correctly. And second, extending the time allows us to do work for less money. We only have so many contractors doing work in this area, so we did not want to artificially encourage high bids by stressing the market. We want to stretch our ratepayers' money. So this is a big lift, but we're also looking at this as an opportunity. These projects will generate a lot of work, So we're taking the time to help develop small businesses to do that work. We didn't want to be in this situation, but if we're here, we can at least use it as an opportunity to help grow jobs in Baltimore. And hopefully that competition means projects can be done cheaper and better. So as I noted, this is a heavy lift and it requires a lot of coordination between DPW's various offices as well as our program management team. On the screen, you will see a list of the different offices that are involved with the modified consent decree. And again, the modified consent decree is a relatively complex legal document that addresses the sanitary sewer system in a holistic manner. The various requirements are broken down into separate paragraphs, and we will walk through some of those requirements tonight. The first paragraph being paragraph 8, which addresses SSO structures. SSO structures are essentially pressure releases that are designed into the system before the Clean Water Act was enacted. When a section of pipe reaches its capacity to transport sewage, an outfall was constructed to discharge to a nearby stream. They had their purpose from an engineering standpoint, but it's certainly not good for water quality, and we wouldn't design a system like that today. So we're eliminating them, but we just can't seal them up. We have to ensure that the system has the capacity to handle the expected flows. Thus, we have to monitor those flows, and then we have to make sure we design an appropriate fix. To date, we have eliminated 60 of the 62 structured SSO points identified in the 2002 consent decree. The 2 remaining SSO structures discharged to the Jones Falls. We'll be able to eliminate them once we fully construct the Headworks project and ensure that we have eliminated the hydraulic restriction. We subsequently found 15 additional SSO structures and have been we have been able to eliminate 6 of them, one of which was eliminated this past year, and that was an overflow structure in the Herring Run sewer shed. That leaves us with 11 SSO structures that we are currently monitoring, and we have approved plans in place to eliminate all of them, and we can start evaluating if it's safe to eliminate these structures once projects are completed. And that brings us to paragraph 9, which are phase 1 projects. And as discussed earlier, the modified consent decree utilizes a 2-prong approach that incorporates an adaptive management process. We have a list of phase 1 projects that are set forth in Appendix B of the modified consent decree, and the deadline to complete the last of these projects was December 31st, 2020. Of the 39 phase 1 projects, we have experienced delays in 8. We've had delays caused by various issues, legal disputes, project changes that were designed to limit impacts to our parks, unforeseen conditions encountered during construction, and impacts caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. This has caused work to continue past the December 31st deadline. Nonetheless, over the past 12 months, we have completed 5 projects and are pushing hard to finish the outstanding work. Once phase 1 is complete, DPW will then be able to fully evaluate the progress made during the phase 1 period. That being said, because the ongoing work is limited, DPW has already begun working on our post-construction flow monitoring and has even begun designing phase 2 projects where appropriate. And we'll talk about that a bit more later on. Here are some of the examples of the type of projects that we were doing in phase 1. The focus really is the remediation of the system. In addition to the construction projects, the city is required to provide additional deliverables to the state and federal regulators. And as discussed, we're nearing the end of phase 1 and we're preparing our post-construction flow monitoring plan and have been installing additional flow monitors in our system in order to get that data to determine how our system is functioning. We have also submitted timely quarterly reports to the state and federal regulators, and those are all posted on our website for review. Here's an example of a graphic that we provide with the quarterly reports to show our progress. We want to make this digestible for the public. And again, all of these reports are available online. Our biggest phase one project is the Headworks project at the Back River Wastewater Treatment Plant. We sort of treat it differently than the other phase ones. Headworks is the project that will eliminate that 10-mile hydraulic restriction. It's an expensive fix, totaling approximately $430 million. But per our hydraulic model, the phase one projects will eliminate approximately 83% of the SSO volume experienced by the city, and Headworks is really responsible for the lion's share of that reduction. DPW has completed the new screening and grit removal facilities, and most importantly has constructed the new pumping station that contains 8 pumps with a combined capacity of 750 million gallons a day. All the pumps have been tested, and I'm happy to report that the pumps were activated in December. So we have flows through the new Headworks project into Back River Wastewater Treatment Plant as we speak. This has allowed the treatment plant to receive increased daily flows, but the treatment plant itself has a capacity. It generally treats on average about 150 million gallons a day during the course of a year, but can safely handle high flow events now as high as 425 million gallons a day. The city is poised to put holding tanks into service that will further allow the plant to store an additional 36 million gallons to accommodate even higher daily flows. If you look at the picture, you can see the plant. It has the red roofs in the background in front of our golden eggs, the digesters. And in the foreground is actually one of the holding tanks that we'll use during very high flow events. And as you can see there, it's actually filled with water, and it is being hydrostatic tested so it can be put into service. Paragraph 10 addresses illegal sewer connections, and the city has a plan to eliminate illegal sewer connections when they're identified. These are often clear water connections, things like roof leaders, which direct stormwater flows into the sanitary system. As we discussed, we don't want the capacity of the sanitary sewer pipes used up by stormwater. If the capacity of the sanitary sewer mains are exceeded due to the introduction of clear water, groundwater, or stormwater, the system will experience wet weather overflows. Most of the city's enforcement actions occurred in the early phases of the 2002 consent decree, and thankfully we did not find any new illegal connections in 2020, so no enforcement was necessary. DPW is continuing to look after its pumping stations. The city is not flat, so pumping stations are used to push sewage over higher elevations so then they can gravity flow. We had no overflows or events that were likely to cause an overflow from any of our pumping stations in 2020. One of the more impressive tools that the city is utilizing is our hydraulic model. The model helps us predict how our system functions in different situations. So it's really necessary to help us determine the impacts our projects are having on our system, as well as planning for phase 2. And we use the model to evaluate impacts caused by rain events. Over the past 12 months, we've utilized our model to develop post-construction flow monitoring plans. That will allow us to evaluate the effects of our phase 1 projects. We have already done pilot studies using rehabilitated portions of our sanitary sewer system. And the model is always a necessary component that allows us to determine if we can safely eliminate overflow structures. You may have seen this graphic before. It shows the various sewer mains that are included in our hydraulic model. DPW established the Office of Asset Management to work on proactive maintenance of our utilities. Our asset management staff prepared our O&M plan, our operation maintenance plan, which was approved by the regulators in 2018. And we did do an annual update to that plan at the end of 2020. You can find the updated documents on our website along with the annual O&M progress report. So the goal here is really to switch from a reactive mode where we are responding to pipe failures or chokes to a more proactive mode where we're conducting preventative maintenance. And here's a list of some of that preventative maintenance done by the Office of Asset Management over the past 12 months. We're cleaning our collection system, treating the pipes to address the buildup of fats, oils, and grease and roots. and we're conducting inspections of food establishments to ensure that they're properly disposing of that fog, fats, oils, and grease. As part of our effort to work smart, we're continuing to utilize technology such as a mobile app to help our maintenance workers access CityWorks. That helps us record, report, track, and resolve customer service requests and work orders. We have continued to expand on our use of CityWorks and we have not experienced any disruptions during the pandemic. DPW has a plan to address sanitary discharges of unknown origins. That was approved by the regulators in 2018. We've also continued to identify and abate SDUOs as we find them. So we are making progress. As you can see here, 11 SDUOs were discovered, 15 were abated. Some of those were from the prior year. And we have 3 SDUOs that are outstanding. We submitted our emergency response plan to the regulators in April of 2018, and we are still working with the regulators to finalize that document. In the interim, we continued to conduct annual training to ensure that our staff is well drilled in the requirements and protocols. DPW is continuing to track and report sewage overflows. And that data shows our efforts are working. We have seen a pretty consistent reduction in SSOs, a 30% reduction from 2012 to fiscal year 2020. We did have an uptick in fiscal year 2019, which captures a lot of that rain that we received in the summer of 2018. And as you know, 2018 was a record year for rainfall, so we really expected to see that increase. But we are seeing those numbers coming down again last year. What is interesting is that we are seeing a significant amount of dry weather SSOs. About half of the SSOs that we experienced in 2018 were dry weather SSOs. And we still had a significant amount of dry weather SSOs in 2019 and 2020. So even though we're making progress and doing a significant amount of work to proactively maintain our system, we can really always use the public's help. The public should really, properly dispose of fats, oils, and grease and other waste that help prevent chokes and reduce our maintenance of the system. And residents can also help by maintaining cleanouts on their properties to allow the city to, have easy access to maintain lateral connections. We have materials available on our consent decree webpage, and there are also going to be materials at the learning stations at the end of this presentation. The city continues to monitor water quality around the city under the municipal separate storm sewer permit. That is a separate permit, not part of the modified consent decree, but DPW conducts ammonia screening on a weekly basis, and then stream impact sampling is further conducted monthly. Now, this information provides general information on water quality and not specifically sewage overflows. We have a number of contributors that can impact water quality. Development activities, human behavior, we have changing regulatory schemes, there's at times historic pollution, weather patterns can affect water quality, and activities elsewhere in the watersheds. It's important to note that Baltimore County is under a similar consent decree. They have been diligently working to improve their portions of the shared sewer system. And thus, the water quality data really captures all of these factors. So there's not a direct causal relationship between water quality and the reduction of SSOs or the elimination of SDUOs, but we can still look at long-term trends. Over the past 12 months, here are the numbers from our Office of Compliance and Research related to our water quality sampling efforts. And so the big question is really, what does the data show? We're doing the work, but what are the results? In Baltimore City, our waterways are impaired for bacteria. In freshwater systems, we look at E. coli as the indicator. And what the data shows is that we're not where we want to be yet. We're not below that red line, which would indicate that our streams are safe for recreation. These samples are taken during dry weather conditions. And although there's not a direct correlation to SSOs, we may still be seeing some of the impacts from dry weather overflows. So we can still do more to reduce overflows and properly disposing of fats, oils, and grease, keeping trees away from our sewage lines, stop the use of flushable wipes. Things like that can help us avoid dry weather overflows. We all need to do our part to keep our public system working properly. Here we have similar data for tidal waters. In this case, we are measuring Enterococcus, which is a different type of bacteria. Nonetheless, the results are similar. We're not there yet. But that brings us to paragraph 20 and some of the public outreach that the city has been doing. The city has produced new brochures to help educate the public on the reimbursement program, how to safely clean up sewage backups, and maybe most importantly, how to prevent them, which I've been discussing. And to that end, the city has also produced social media campaigns to help educate the public regarding the proper disposal of fats, oils, and grease. As noted previously, we update our website with deliverables when they're submitted to our regulators, as well as other information to increase public engagement. And we encourage you to use our website to keep updated on the work the city is doing. You can even sign up to receive notifications on our website. And finally, phase 1 of the consent decree has required almost $3 billion in construction work. And we still need to complete additional projects under phase 2. Recognizing the amount of work being generated, DPW is taking the time to help develop minority, women, and disadvantaged businesses to complete that work. This year, due to the pandemic, it was an online course, but it still included construction management training with instruction on estimating and bidding, management best practices, program management, contract administration, bonding, etc. Participants also obtain support in getting certified and pre-qualified with the city so they can get jobs and get our contracts. We want these folks to be out there competing for jobs, and competition can only help us get this work done cheaper and better. This has been a very successful program and one that we want to continue. So we will have a new class forming in September. So in review, we're doing more to prevent overflows through a modified consent decree. We're thoroughly evaluating our collection system, and that will continue at the end of phase 1 as we're doing our post-construction flow monitoring and preparing for our phase 2 projects. We're using technology to try to work smart, and we're completing projects in a way that is economical for the people of Baltimore. And in doing so, we're also investing in local small businesses. But 2020 has been a challenging year, and it is not without its challenges for DPW and the consent decree program. We've faced some delays in our projects. We're pushing those to get done, but we have a strategy to limit those delays, and we're working expeditiously to get our post-construction flow monitoring completed, and we're even attempting to design our phase 2 projects early where we're capable of doing that. At the conclusion of my speech, we're going to have you proceed to breakout rooms and hear a list of the different breakout rooms and the topics that are being discussed. So we'll encourage you to take part, go into each of the rooms, hear what the experts in these topics have to say, and answer any questions that you might have. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. But again, we still want you to move to the learning stations. And I thank you for listening, and I encourage everyone to submit comments and stay engaged going forward.